Your Honor.
Was deemed no value.
He was the happiest, sweetest, easiest baby.
A tearful and shaking Lindsay Clancy refused to meet her former nanny's eyes during day 7 of her murder trial. Elaine Rossi recalled caring for Lindsay's 3 children months before they were strangled to death in the basement of their Massachusetts home. The court also clearly heard Lindsay's voice for the first time since the trial began, as she struck a major evidence deal that could cut out days of testimony. I'm Fiona McLaughlin with the U.S. Sun, and here's what you missed from days 6 and 7 of Lindsay Clancy's trial. Lindsay Clancy spoke for the first time in court on day 6 of her murder trial, repeatedly answering "Yes, Your Honor," as she entered an agreement about evidence in the case. The agreement is not a guilty plea, nor is it Lindsay admitting to being criminally responsible for her children's deaths. Instead, it removed the need for the prosecution to prove facts about the chain of custody for some key pieces of evidence, which could make the trial shorter than expected.
In this case, is required to prove each and every element of the case against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. You understand that there are certain facts that could be introduced during the course of the trial that would support, might support the Commonwealth's position regarding those elements. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right.
On day 7 of the trial, the prosecution gave a brief explanation about what the 4 stipulations Lindsay agreed to were about.
I talked a little bit about those stipulations. So the same instructions. All right. These are facts that I'm going to read that the parties have agreed to that you can rely on in arriving at your verdict.
A bloody knife Lindsay used to harm herself and the exercise bands used to kill her children were recovered from the Clancy home and sent out for forensic testing. Upon further analysis, the State Police Crime Scene Services found there were no usable fingerprints on the items and deemed them as having, quote, no value.
Can you tell us what your findings were when it came to the knife?
Yes, the knife did have limited detail, meaning that there were areas of friction ridge impressions, which is that's what we've referred to fingerprints. Is the friction ridge skin is the skin that covers your palms and your fingers and your toes and your feet. The friction ridge skin is what leaves the impression on an object. So there was an area of friction ridge impression on that knife. Mm-hmm. So it was photographed further and given an item number. Upon further analysis, there was not enough detail to do a comparison.
So when you photograph it for further analysis, why do you do that?
Do that in order to take a deeper look to see if there was enough characteristics or minutia to do a comparison to a known print.
So with a photograph, you can enhance it and look at it closer, correct?
Correct.
But after doing that, were you able to make any sort of opinions about that area on the knife?
Yes, there was not enough characteristics or minutia to do any comparison, so it was deemed no value.
And as far as the exercise bands, fair to say you also did the same and examined those to try to identify if they had any friction ridge detail or anything of value that you could conduct a comparison on, right?
Yes.
And was there any on either the yellow band, the black band, or the blue band?
No.
The question of whether or not there were fingerprints found on the evidence sparked a dramatic outburst from Lindsay's lawyer, Kevin Reddington, on Tuesday. The prosecutor jumped from her seat to object after he appeared to claim they were dancing around the issue.
So basically, how long is your course that you take to become a crime scene technician for the state police?
So before you're certified for fingerprints, it's usually about a year.
So you're working in that crime scene services unit for a year while you're going to the school for it?
Yes, it's more of an internal training. You don't go to a specific school, but yes.
So you told us about your training. You told us about your experience. You told us about fingerprints. You told us how you seize items in the course of a search warrant. And then you told us about looking at the photographs and the items that would depict friction ridge, if any. But the bottom line is that you didn't get any fingerprints.
Correct.
And that you could have just said that, right? Just come on the witness stand and say, we didn't get any fingerprints.
Sustained.
So then you're talking about, as the state police investigating this case, you guys walk around and you have cameras and you take pictures, right?
Yes.
That's what you told us about. Well, how about when you're executing a search warrant? Are you supposed to be thorough in the course of your search for items?
I don't search for items, sir. Everything I do
Pictures,
is
right?
Yes, I document.
So if I went into the bedroom, if I found a bunch of drugs, in addition to the drugs that were found in the kitchen, and I found these in a nightstand with blood on top of the nightstand and the knife that you talked about, you would have photographed that, right?
Yes.
Never saw that, did you?
No.
I have no further questions.
Lindsay's former nanny, who she hired to care for Callan, the youngest Clancy, weeks before she planned to return for work, took the stand on day 7 of the trial. Lindsay refused to meet the woman's eyes as she recalled Lindsay opening up about her postpartum struggles.
To the right of the refrigerator, I believe in a cabinet.
And you had to go into the Patrick and Lindsay's bedroom, right?
I did.
Fair to say Callan's crib was in there.
It was.
So do you recall ever seeing medications in the bedroom?
I didn't.
The nanny revealed she primarily cared for Callan, but would also take care of Cora and Dawson on occasion, and even once took them to an indoor gymnastics center. Lindsay was seen crying as the nanny described Cora as a girly girl, Dawson as full of energy and silly, and Callan as the happiest, sweetest, easiest baby.
The kids themselves, you had the occasion to spend some time with Cora, and how would you describe Cora?
Oh, Cora was a girly girl who loved her babies very much. She was very sweet, and she loved arts and crafts and loved playing with her Fresh Mart, which was a little children's supermarket. She was lovely.
And Dawson, how about him? How would you describe him?
Dawson was full of energy, rambunctious, funny, silly.
Did you ever have any problem watching Dawson or keeping him under control? Or
Not at all. I was only with him on a handful of occasions.
did you ever see Dawson kind of interacting with his siblings, with Cora or with Callan?
I did.
And did you see anything, or could you tell us a little bit about Dawson's interactions with them?
Cora and Dawson played well. There was one occasion in the kitchen where they were playing, and I think Cora took one of his Play-Doh, something, he was playing with Play-Doh, and his reaction, he was frustrated, and he reached out and slapped Callan.
Now, were you alone with the kids during this interaction, or was Lindsay present too?
Lindsay was, I think, in the kitchen at the same time.
Did you see her react to that when she saw that behavior?
She did.
And what was the reaction? What did she
She
do?
went over and removed Callan, she removed Dawson from the room and came back and consoled Callan.
Okay. And eventually, did you see her go back and kind of talk to Dawson about his behavior and address it? Okay. And was that appropriate in your opinion?
Of course, yes.
How about how you would describe Callan? How would you describe him? You spent the most time with him, correct?
I did. He was the happiest, sweetest, easiest baby. He was just a love.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe for more stories from the U.S. Sun.